to just spend time, reflect, ask the Lord, what does he mean to us? And I think as I'm surrounded by some of the priests here, we'll all tell you that we all kind of loved him. And, like anything else, a relationship with anybody, your father or son, or your son and father, there were moments where we weren't sure what was going on. We would ask questions, but he would always answer them. He was very straightforward, he was very humble, and he was a very pastoral kind of spirit. He was Argentinian, so, if you're anyway Hispanic, Argentinians are different sometimes. They're not kind of like Cubans or Puerto Ricans, I'm sorry about Puerto Ricans, they're a little bit more laissez-faire. He was very Italian too, so he would kind of be very straight with you when you ask questions. But I mean, he was a joy to be around because he just kind of, it beamed, everything he did was kind of like with joy. It wasn't kind of a headache. You didn't feel. Other popes, Benedict was a lovely person, but very quiet and very timid, a teacher. But he was the one who would kind of point to you and ask that very important question. Francis just was bubbly, but sometimes he would kind of point to you, He would kind of like, if it wasn't for a time to kind of have fun, he would just say, that's it, now we need to talk. He'd chit-chat and so forth. So that's kind of like just to let you know. So with that spirit, we welcome you and thank you for being here today. And whatever message we can get across to you and whatever way we can make your life easier, we'll try to do it. Okay?
Bishop, during your mass, you spoke a little bit about the last time you saw Pope Francis.
Yeah.
When was that, and what did you take away from that last meeting?
Well, you meet different popes. And when the last time I met him, yes, he was very businesslike because it was our ad limina meeting. We go every 5 years and we go to Rome. But he didn't make it business. He made it personal for you. He would ask questions, what's happening in Orlando? What are the people thinking? He wasn't kind of asking you how many people were converted, how many people went to church. It was none of that. It was all about what you personally experienced in the people you ministered to. And that was his whole goal. Are you ministering to the people? Do you know the people? And that's the thing he would tell you. Oh, I want to know statistics. I want to know what you know. So it was very personal, and he knew that's what he did. In Argentina, he lived with the people. He went on the train, he went on the subway. He kind of wanted to make sure you were doing the same. Not that I go on the subway here or go on the train or go on the bus occasionally downtown, but that's about it. Most of the time I drive my own car, that kind of thing. So that was my last impression with him.
Talk a little bit about the message for the people. During Mass you talked about there being joy in the midst of sadness and this Easter season. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Joy in the middle, it's kind of ironic. I said to myself, he's not going to die during Lent. I knew when he came home from the hospital, he was not going back there. He was very kind of determined. He wanted to die with the people. So I was glad he died on Easter, because it's an Alleluia time. If he died during Lent, it would be like, Lord, I don't want this to happen, hold this off, So I think he held off, in his own heart and soul, he wanted the people to celebrate. He didn't want them to go through a sorrow. He didn't want to die on Good Friday. That's enough for the Lord. I don't want to be interfering with the Lord. Let me die on an Alleluia day. So that's the way I kind of felt. That would be his prayer. And I bet that's what he prayed for, that he was going to die at home.
What is the legacy that he leaves behind?
A legacy, wow. Lots of things. Pastorally, he was so different. He was very personal, very open. He, I guess he opened the church up to a lot of things. I think the part of his life that most people probably will not know about or even understand is the whole thing. Each pope is elected, and he has in his own heart what I want to do. But he also receives a mandate from the cardinals or from the church. He has to do something. His mandate was to reform the church, not the church per se, but the curia. It would be like what's happening in Washington right now. And he probably did the same thing that's happening in Washington right now. He caused chaos because he didn't go with the formality. He asked bishops and cardinals to know what they were doing, and they were to serve the people. Because we saw a whole different response. When I write a letter to Rome, I get a response within a week. I wrote a letter to Rome 10 years ago. It could take a month. So, you found that they were there to serve you. the church, the curia, the different congregations. So that was a thing I think that people didn't realize, and that's not his personality, but he was very stubborn about it. If you read any of his documents at Christmas when he addressed the curia, you think at Christmas time that it would be a nice time. It was like, what are you doing? Are you working? Are you taking care of the people? He was very demanding in that sense to them. He wasn't like very nice in person, he was very demanding. So I think a legacy will come out that he's done a great deal of reforming, from finance to abuse. All of that was really streamlined and very direct. There was no kind of like committees, it was just get the job done. So I think he was very, but then on the pastor side, he just loved the people. Whatever the questions was, I have to answer them. I have to give them hope. It's not about what you, the curia, think. It's what I think the people need to know, and you better learn.
Can you talk about the mourning period and process following the Pope's death?
I'll let one of my guys, who wants to try that? Miguel. You hear me all the time now. You better hear these guys.
My name is Miguel Gonzalez, Father Miguel Gonzalez, Miguel-Gonzalez, in case you want to.
And he's the rector of the cathedral.
And I welcome you all to St. James along with Bishop Noonan. Yes, over here. Along with Bishop Noonan, I welcome you to St. James Cathedral. What's going to be happening now, there's going to be a period of mourning, as you all know right now. That's where we're at right now. And then in the next 6 days, we'll have a better sense as to when that funeral is going to take place. The cardinals right now are already beginning their journey to Rome to gather with the other brother cardinals to take part of the funeral services, and then afterwards, then the process of the conclave, which have already begun, believe it or not. They're already putting in place everything that needs to be organized and prepared for when the cardinals gather in the Sistine Chapel for the conclave. So this is a period of mourning, of masses, of prayers, but also after the funeral, then prepare to open the doors to the successor.
The only thing I would say is streamline the funeral of the Pope. He's not going to be buried in St. Peter's. He's going to be buried in another church.
It's going to be at the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, one of the major basilicas in Rome. And St. Ignatius of Loyola, founder of the Jesuit order he was a part of, his first Mass of Thanksgiving as a newly ordained was there. So there's a special connection that he's had. And each time that he travels or returns to Rome, he always makes a stop at that basilica to make a prayer. So definitely a deep connection with that basilica.
Is there any sort of significance in the fact that he was the first Latin American pontiff? So talk to me about that.
Well, for some of us that are from Hispanic, but all of us who are from this hemisphere, there's a great sense of joy and thanksgiving to God that the church, that the Holy Spirit identified this man and be the first one from this hemisphere to lead and shepherd God's people. I believe that part of his beautiful life, and as you've heard Bishop say about taking a train or just walking to get the daily paper, you see a man that really was connected to the people, and there was a beautiful ministry of presence. And pastorally, he was so enriched with that gift that, to me as a Hispanic, Puerto Rico, that's part of the heart of the Hispanic individual, that it's always opening the doors to welcome people, to serve people, to meet people where they're at. So there was a great sense of connection and beauty about his beautiful shepherding as a Pope.
Father, can you say some words in Spanish, please?
Bueno, esta mañana, como pueden ver, el obispo se ha congregado con nosotros aquí a ofrecer misa por el eterno descanso de su santidad del Papa Francisco. Estos son días ahora en que estaremos obviamente en un periodo de oración diaria, encomendando el alma del Santo Padre a Dios nuestro Padre, y luego del servicio funeral tendremos entonces el cónclave para que los cardenales que ya van camino a Roma puedan entonces entrar en la Capilla Sistina para elegir al nuevo sucesor de Pedro.
I guess we can let Angel. You've got to hear all of us and you get some perspective, because otherwise you get one.
Absolutely.
You can hear the story.
Well, my name is Father Angel Garcia, Angelgarcia, and I'm a priest of 2 years. I've been a priest for 2 years, and as I was mentioning during the homily, when Pope Francis was elected, I was in high school. I was in high school, but at that time I was already discerning the priesthood. I was already feeling the call to the priesthood, and it was really impactful to see this Pope who, from the beginning, showed humility. And he showed that simplicity and the closeness with the people. So that was something that was a great impact to me. And then, throughout my years in seminary, I got the opportunity to see him up close when he came to the United States. One of his first trips outside of Rome was to the United States. And when he came to Washington, D.C., all of the seminary community, we went to Washington. We were there, present. And also, as a newly ordained priest, I got the privilege of going to World Youth Day, which is this event in which Pope John Paul II started for all the youth of the world to gather, right? And to be there, and days of prayer, days of really learning and being with the Pope, the closest with the Pope. And during that time, it was beautiful to see all the young people and how they wanted to hear from their spiritual leader, our spiritual leader, Pope Francis. And so, like Bishop was saying, during the homily, we've been saying in the interview, yes, it is a time of sadness, but at the same time, it is a time of joy of the resurrection. Bueno, en español también. A pesar de que sí, como iglesia hemos perdido, digamos, a nuestro líder, nuestro padre espiritual, el Papa Francisco, a la misma vez, siendo el tiempo de la resurrección, es un tiempo de alegría, porque de eso se trata este tiempo, de que la muerte no es el final, sino Cristo, al vencer la muerte, nos lleva hacia la vida eterna, y ese es el enfoque. Y el Papa Francisco, con su cercanía, con su simplicidad, siempre nos enfocaba en la importancia de que esta vida no es el final, es la próxima, y es allá donde tenemos que poner todo nuestro esfuerzo y todo nuestro empeño en la vida futura. Entonces, el hecho de que este Papa de la misericordia, este Papa de la esperanza, este Papa de los pobres, que muera en el tiempo de la resurrección, eso es de Dios, realmente es de Dios, pero él también habla de su propio legado, y ese es parte del legado que él deja.
Now you can have the gringo. You speak Spanish too.
Hi, I'm Father Philip Mills, P-H-I-L-L-I-P-M-I-L-L-S. I have been ordained for less than a year, and yeah, it's really, Pope Francis's pontificate has been really powerful. I didn't know that much about him until I had entered seminary, and as soon as I entered seminary, they announced the Year of Mercy, they announced the canonization of St. Junipero Serra in Washington, D.C., which, like Father Angel mentioned, we were able to go to and be there to see Pope Francis. But the thing that always amazed me about Pope Francis was he never talked about God's mercy as something he was there to give to you. He always spoke about it as, like, he has received that mercy from Christ, and he wants to bring us to Christ, for us to receive that in that relationship with him. And I think it's really powerful that during this Jubilee year right now, Pope Francis, did a little change. He said, I want every cathedral throughout the world to have a special crucifix placed in the sanctuary. That's why you see the crucifix at the front of our sanctuary right there. And it's because he was emphasizing the fact that we come to Christ, that Christ is inviting each and every single one of us. Todo el tiempo Papa Francisco estaba hablando de la misericordia de Dios, no como algo que él estaba tratando de dar a nosotros, pero es que Papa Francisco recibió esta misericordia del Señor, y él estaba tratando de presentarnos a nosotros la persona de Jesucristo. Él quien está invitando a cada uno de nosotros a su cruz, a su resurrección. Esa razón por la cual Papa Francisco mandó que cada catedral durante este año tenía una cruz especial al frente del santuario, en cada catedral, porque cada uno de nosotros estamos invitados a venir a Jesucristo personalmente, con nuestra propia relación con Él. Entonces Papa Francisco nunca estaba diciéndonos, esta es la relación que necesitas tener con el Señor. Él solo estaba diciéndonos, el Señor está llamándonos. En verdad, era un testigo de misericordia. No como estaba dándonos las reglas para recibirlo, pero en verdad una invitación.
I got a few more questions. What's the church's rights after the death of the Pope?
One of the things that took place immediately after passing was they shattered his papal ring. That ring, which is basically what he would do to sign special documents that would capture the official documents that the Pope signed, immediately that is destroyed. So right now we have what is called sede vacante. It's a vacant seat right now. So we continue to move forward because the church continues the journey, continues the pilgrimage. So until the new Pope arrives, comes to us, the bishops will continue that labor of love and ministry and service as they continue to shepherd God's people.
And what's the selection process for a new pope?
That will be the conclave, which obviously once the funerals conclude, those cardinals will gather. They'll be in the Sistine Chapel. They'll be completely disconnected from the outside world, and they will be evaluating, discerning, praying as to where the Spirit is going to lead them as they identify who that successor would be by going through those votes that have to take place. 2/3 of the vote is what would then convey to us the news that we have a new Pope.
Maybe you mentioned about the synod. That was part of his idea, his kind of philosophy, to get the cardinals together more often.
Yeah,
They were in Rome in October this year, and last year they were together in Rome, just to kind of, with a lot of people, not just other bishops, lay people, the idea that they would learn about each other. Because the Pope has now diversified the cardinals so much, they're from almost every country in the world. It's not any longer just the United States and Europe. They're from every country, from countries you never even believe, that we've never even heard of. Which is kind of good because it shows that the church is for the world, not for just Europe or the United States.
My last point is a message to the world following Pope's death this morning.
Message to the world, I guess, Pope Francis came into the world and knelt down before the people, and he asked the people to pray for him. Never before had it happened. That he then said, as you pray for me, I pray for you. I think that's his message to the world, that he wants us to pray for him, but also pray for our world today. And I think, what appropriate during these times when we have a lot of, his whole message, his last encyclical was about the heart, change your heart. And the heart of him, Francis, was to bring peace into our world.
As he chose the name Francis, he took to heart an invitation from another brother cardinal. Remember the poor. Remember the poor. So I think that's what we need to be mindful of as we continue the journey with God's people, is to remember those in need, to remember the forgotten, to reach out to them with love, to the poor, to the homeless, to those who suffer. He is the son of immigrants that came to Argentina from Italy. So he knew from experience what that felt like, the struggles of that. So I think that we need to continue to be mindful of the struggles of so many people and bring hope, which again is that theme for this year's Jubilee that the Pope invited us to discern and prayerfully consider, that we're all pilgrims, not just a few, the entire world. We're all sons and daughters of God, and because we're all brothers and sisters, we must continue this journey together, helping each other and be there for each other, just in the same spirit and fashion of St. Francis of Assisi, whose name Pope Francis took.
Would you mind just saying and spelling your name for us?
My name?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, my name is John, John, Noonan, Noonan. And I hate to say it, but when I was in Miami, my nickname was High Noon. So that's how you can, there's a double O in it. So anything else? I mean, these are, the people I'm surrounded with. I'm blessed with all these guys. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm a father to all these. I had this guy in school, These guys I didn't as much, but I'd be with them all this time. So I'm very blessed to see what they can do today. So Jennifer, did we pass the inspection?
I think so. Any more questions, guys?
Tengo una última pregunta para usted, padre, si no le molesta en español.
O si otro, ¿qué?
Usted estaba diciendo, una de las cosas más importantes del Papa es que él vivió mucho como Jesús vivió su vida, ayudando a las personas que más lo necesitaban, y definitivamente dejó una huella muy grande para nuestra comunidad. Si nos puede hablar un poquito de eso.
Sin duda alguna, siendo él hijo de inmigrantes, sus padres llegaron de Italia a Argentina, o sea que él conoce muy bien los retos del pueblo inmigrante, porque él es hijo de una familia inmigrante, y por eso él, el cariño, el amor, la entrega, el compromiso de servir al que lo necesita, al que no es recibido, al que es marginado. Siempre nos está invitando a tomar conciencia de los más vulnerables y brindarles a Cristo con un rayo de esperanza, con un rayo de fe y de gozo, en el sentido de que no estamos solos en este peregrinaje, que el Señor camina con nosotros y ese es el legado que Él nos ha dejado como Papa y como miembro de la Iglesia.
Gracias.
Thank you. Orlando, getting out of my life.
us in his own image and likeness so that we would live with him for all eternity.
The Pope made an appearance yesterday. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, again, the Pope made an appearance on Easter Sunday, and Easter Sunday is a very important day in the life of the church. And usually on Easter Sunday, the Pope has a message to the city of Rome and to the world, in which he usually reviews some of the problems of the world, asking for special prayers, etc. And so in his message, he once again brought up the conflict in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine, and the situation in Israel with the war against Hamas. And so the only difference being that he was not able to preside at the Mass, and that somebody else read the sermon that he had prepared for that Mass, and he just limited himself to that short message. So he was working to the very end. You could say that he died with his boots on.
So I'm going to ask 1 second the Archbishop to say a few words in Spanish, and then we'll get into the question.
Muy bien. Esta mañana nos amanecemos con la noticia que el Papa había muerto en Roma esta mañana. Y bueno, por tener 88 años de edad, esto no viene de sorpresa, pero al mismo tiempo, como en el caso de nuestros padres, de nuestros abuelos, cuando un ser querido muera, siempre nos llega como un choque. Entonces, en esta semana estamos en duelo, pidiendo al Señor por el descanso eterno del Papa, del Santo Padre, para que Él pueda gozar en el cielo el premio que Jesús le había prometido a todos los siervos fieles. Entonces, en esta semana, la Iglesia en todo el mundo está rezando por el eterno descanso del Papa, y vamos a continuar en esa línea hasta el día de su entierro, que todavía no sé si había un anuncio o no, pero después del entierro del Papa, entonces seguimos con las plegarias pidiendo su eterno descanso, pero al mismo tiempo vamos a comenzar rezando al Espíritu Santo para que el Espíritu Santo guíe a los cardenales cuando se reúnen en conclave para elegir el nuevo Papa. Entonces estamos en una época de transición, de cambio, y eso va a durar unas semanas. Cuántas semanas no sabemos, pero el ritmo de la Iglesia sigue, y estamos acompañados también por los tiempos litúrgicos que estamos celebrando. Es significativo que el Papa murió en la semana de Pascua, pues la Pascua es una celebración de nuestra fe en la resurrección de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, quien padeció y murió, fue sepultado y resucitó al tercer día. Y en la resurrección de Cristo vemos la promesa de nuestra propia resurrección. Como San Pablo nos dice, si morimos con Cristo, vamos a resucitar también con Él. Entonces, el Papa murió en la semana de la resurrección. Fue el lunes de la semana de Pascua. Hace 20 años murió Juan Pablo II en el último día de la semana de Pascua. Y yo creo que quizá el Señor está haciéndonos una lección de catecismo para que sepamos que Dios no nos creó para que muriéramos un día, nos creó para la vida eterna, nos creó para que vivamos con Él, y nos creó en su imagen y semejanza, y por eso sabemos que no vamos a morir por siempre, pero tenemos la esperanza de vivir con Él. Gracias a Cristo que nos ha reconciliado por su muerte y resurrección.
¿Qué significa que haya fallecido su santidad exactamente el lunes después del domingo de resurrección?
Bueno, pues como dije, es parte de quizá una lección que quiere darnos, quizá el Papa mismo quiere darnos esa lección de que la muerte no es el fin, pero en la resurrección sabemos que la muerte solamente es un pasaje. Estamos pasando de la muerte hacia la vida. La Pascua quiere decir el paso del Señor, el paso de los hebreos de la esclavitud de egipcio a la libertad de la tierra prometida, y el paso de Jesús de la muerte a la vida es también nuestro paso. Estamos todavía en el camino, pero el camino hacia la gloria pasa por el sendero de la cruz.
Do you mind repeating that in English? Just what's the significance of the Pope passing away on Easter?
Well, the Pope passing during Easter week, I think, is perhaps the last lesson or instruction he is giving us, because Easter is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of the fact that life conquers death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And as St. Paul says, if we die with Christ, we will rise with him. And so Easter tells us that God did not create us in his own image and likeness just for us to die one day. He created us for himself. And so death is only a passage. When we believe that when we die, when we leave this earth, life is not ended for us, but it's changed. And so now Pope Francis goes to experience that new phase in his life, the phase that leads us all. And we hope to be as faithful so that we too may share in the rewards of eternal life.
¿Podríamos decir que hay algún tipo de relación o qué recuerdos hay de su santidad con Miami? ¿Qué conexión había con el pueblo de Miami?
Bueno, una vez cuando lo encontré por primera vez, unas pocas semanas después de ser elegido Papa, estuve en Roma y tuve la oportunidad de hablar con él. Entonces le dije que yo era de Miami. Entonces le explicaba que lo bueno de vivir en Miami es que queda tan cerca a los Estados Unidos. Y él se rió a carcajadas, porque siendo argentino entiende muy bien lo que es Miami para América Latina. Pues Miami es el capital de América Latina, ¿verdad? Entonces, en ese sentido, el Papa siempre ha tenido un sentido de humor, y también estuve cuando estaba en Cuba, y de Cuba fue directamente a Washington, D.C. para una visita. Yo creo que eso fue en el año 2012-2013, y esos viajes fueron bastante significativos. Se dirigió al Congreso de los Estados Unidos, primera vez que un papa había hablado con el Congreso total, senadores y representantes en el Congreso.
And what memories do you have with the Pope specifically? How many times did you meet him?
I probably met him about 5 or 6 times. I saw him in Rome shortly after he was elected Pope. I was there in Rome 5 years after the Haitian earthquake, because he had a special commemoration for that. And here in Miami, we were very much involved in the recovery efforts. And so I remember the Knights of Columbus brought some amputees, some young boys that were amputees in the earthquake, and they had prosthetics, and they were there to show the Holy Father that they still played soccer. And of course, the Holy Father, being Argentinian, was a great soccer fan. I also was with the Holy Father when he went to Cuba. When he came to the United States, I was at that Mass that he celebrated outside the National Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. And also I had an invitation to be in the gallery when he gave the speech to the joint session of Congress. In 2020 was the last time I met him, and I was there on the Ad Limina visit, where the bishops of the region go and give a report to the Holy See on the state of our dioceses, and have an opportunity to discuss that report with the Holy Father. And so we spent about almost 2 hours, myself and the other bishops in the region. There were about 20 of us, I guess, and he was very relaxed and very open to hearing our opinion and sharing his opinion. And it was right before the COVID crisis. I was there in February of 2020, and I remember I showed him when I was leaving. My socks, because I had a pair of socks with Harley Davidson logo on them.
Could you speak to his impact on...
del Papa es que es el primer también mensaje americano, un mensaje de legado de integración de la comunidad, sobre todo en estos momentos de deja usted dentro de la iglesia a los migrantes.
Bueno, yo creo que el Papa siempre ha sido un defensor de los inmigrantes. Su primer viaje, después de ser elegido Papa, fue a visitar una isla italiana que se llama Lampedusa, donde estaban varados allí unos refugiados africanos que naufragaron en camino hacia Europa. Entonces, él quería hacer hincapié en que la iglesia debe ser cercano a los refugiados, pues Jesucristo también fue refugiado. Y entonces la situación de las Américas es muy dramática por la inmigración. Entonces el Papa siempre ha hablado y abogado en favor de los migrantes.
Do you mind repeating the story in English of that interaction you had that was memorable for you regarding Miami?
Did I say it
Yeah,
in English?
about the Miami being so special.
Well, when the first time I met the Pope, I was shortly after he was elected, and I was in Rome for some reason or the other, and I had the chance to see him. And when I introduced myself to him, I said I was from Miami, and of course he looked pleased, and I said, you know, the best thing about Miami is that it's so close to the United States, and he really enjoyed that. He laughed and laughed very loudly, and he would understand that because being from Latin America, he would understand what Miami represents to the hemisphere.
Could you speak to his impact on the people of Cuba and the people of Haiti?
Well, in Haiti, he named the first Haitian cardinal, Cardinal Chibli. He was the Bishop of Lacaille, and that happened early on in his pontificate. He wanted to single out Haiti and other small countries by naming prelates from those countries to the cardinalatial see as cardinals. I think also to say that it's not your wealth or your status that defines your importance in the eyes of God. It's the fact that you are a child of God. And so Cuba, he went to Cuba. Actually, he went to Cuba twice. Once on a formal visit took him to several cities, and that was immediately before he came to the United States. And then later on a trip that I think he was taken to Colombia or Mexico, he stopped in Cuba for a few hours to meet with the Russian Orthodox patriarch. And it was a kind of a neutral area that they could agree to meet. And of course, that meeting was very important to seek reconciliation between the East and the West, between Catholicism and Orthodoxy.
So many see the Pope as a reformer. Do you believe he reformed many things within the Catholic Church?
I think every pope, in some sense, is a reformer, because every pope comes with their unique talents and to make a contribution to the life of the church. And so, certainly, John the 23rd and Paul the 6th were great reformers, because this is where we saw the changes brought about by the Second Vatican Council. John Paul II was a reformer because of what he did, especially for Eastern Europe, and helping to contribute to the downfall of the Berlin Wall and the liberation of Eastern Europe from the yoke of communism. Benedict XVI also was a reformer in many ways. So every pope is a reformer, and certainly Pope Francis was very insistent that the church be close to the people and be close to especially those that were left on the margins, left marginalized, or he spoke very strongly against what he saw as the globalization of indifference and a culture of a disposable culture, what he called la cultura de descarte, which seems to afflict many of us. Not only that we have conspicuous consumption and we buy things and dispose of them, and maybe in the process of doing that hurt the ecology of the natural environment, but also the fact that we are too easy to dispose of people, to discard people, because we feel them as unimportant or dispensable.
And what's next for the church, and how do you see, the church moving forward with this next pope? And specifically, what would your message be to the Archdiocese of Miami, to parishioners in Miami who may be concerned that things, again, as you mentioned, many popes are reformers, so this new pope could essentially reverse many ideals that Pope Francis had?
Well, I don't think, he's going to reverse many things that Pope Francis did, in many of the same ways that Pope Francis never reversed many of the essential things that the previous popes have done. So I think basically what's the immediate future for the church is to pray for the election of a new pope after we pray for the pope as we bury him and lay him to rest. Once we do that, then we pray for the election of the new pope, and that the Holy Spirit guide that cardinal or that priest, that he be that he accept that burden and seek in the Lord the grace to carry it. And the church moves forward. Church has been around for almost 2,000 years. We've had good times and bad times, and from what people I've talked to over the past day or so, they're telling me that churches were really, really filled this weekend throughout not only the Archdiocese, but in other places. I was talking to somebody from Spain, and they said it was unusual to see as many people as they had. So we might be at the cusp of a revival. At least the COVID era has been gone, is over, I think, and people are coming back to church, and hopefully, and that was one of the contributions of the Holy Father too, in the sense that, in a way, he was kind of anti-institutional. He talked about, the world being not in a time, not in an era of change, but a change of an era, and that change of an era happened because all the institutions of society, in one way or the other, were discredited by corruption or other things. So you're talking about, society and institutions in politics and academia and the economy, even in the church, they were all discredited. And so institutions were not highly regarded by people. That's part of the reason why we have the polarization that we have, not only in this country, but throughout the world. And the Pope recognized that, and so when he became Pope, he really took a anti-institutional tack. So he excused the pomp and circumstance of the papacy. He didn't ride in limousines. He rode in small Fiats. He carried his own bag. When he was elected Pope, he went back to the priest hotel where he was staying to pay his bill. And so, those gestures communicated an openness to a new world, and a world in which perhaps, where people's confidence in institutions were shaken, that they, could look at this man with new eyes. And in fact, many people, were touched by the Pope. And I heard a lot of people say, I'm not a Catholic, but I like this Pope.
Precisamente le quería preguntar la relación con Cuba. Sabemos que además fue un papa supremamente humilde, que de hecho hasta se negó a que le dijesen su santidad. Pero esa relación con Cuba, con un pueblo que lucha precisamente por su fe, háblenos un poco de esa relación.
Bueno, lo que marca un antes y un después en las relaciones con Cuba y la Iglesia fue la visita de Juan Pablo II en 1908. Y las visitas seguidas de Benedicto y Francisco fueron posibles por esa visita de Juan Pablo II. Entonces, hay que hablar de las tres visitas en conjunto. Y yo creo que cada visita era como una inyección de esperanza. El Papa Juan Pablo dijo que vino como mensajero de paz. El Francisco dijo algo parecido, el mensajero de esperanza. Y para que haya paz en Cuba, tiene que haber esperanza. Y como dijo Benedicto, donde no hay Dios, no hay esperanza no hay futuro. Entonces, yo creo que las visitas de los tres papas estaban tratando de reintroducir a la isla esa, esa relación con Dios para que el pueblo reconciliado con Dios pudiera encontrar esperanza para un futuro mejor.
Okay, we have time for just one more question because then Archbishop is going to get ready for the Mass. I want to take the time to invite you all. Archbishop is going to be celebrating Mass at 11:45 right here at St. Mary Cathedral.
At St. Martha's.
At St. Martha, sorry. At St. Martha Church for the repose of the soul of Pope Francis. Okay, so one more question for Archbishop.
Okay, yes.
La relación, a propósito que mi colega comentaba con Cuba, con Venezuela fue bastante ambigua, ¿no? Quizás no tuvo como una postura, digamos, radical, fue bastante por el medio, no estuvo como ni tan a favor de la oposición ni tan a favor del oficialismo. ¿Cree que ahora con este nuevo, el nuevo periodo papal que viene ahora, puede ser un poco más acercamiento hacia los presos políticos, hacia los derechos humanos en Venezuela?
Bueno, esperamos que sí, que haya un camino hacia una transición pacífica y justa, no solamente para Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua también. O sea, Nicaragua en este momento tiene 4 obispos exiliados y no había anuncio en Cuba, digo en Nicaragua por más que 3 años. Entonces, bueno, la política del Vaticano es una política basada en la fuerza moral, no la fuerza de armas. Como dijo Stalin una vez, cuántas tropas tiene el Papa. Tenemos que luchar no con armas de violencia, pero con las armas de la verdad y de amor. Gracias.
Thank you so much. We'll see you at 11:45. Okay?
Right, Susan?
Aquí.
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
I'll give you 5 minutes.
11:45.
Just have to walk out this door.
Oh, it's an hour. It's an hour, right?
hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and a very happy Easter to everyone. It was a beautiful day yesterday, and it's a beautiful day today. We don't have to worry about sunburn, but looks like it's not going to be raining. It's going to be really something special. 40,000, 42,000 people are expected all throughout the day, and it's an honor to have you. I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard. He loved the world, and it's an honor to do that. I want to thank everybody for being here. This is some band. I've heard this band actually indirectly for 4 years and very directly now for 4.5. And I like the direct method even better. But the Marine Corps Band is very, very special. Thank you very much. What a great job. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to thank the National Park Service, the job they do in making everything so beautiful and spiffy. And I'm very difficult when it comes to that. I will tell you, very, very difficult. And I say they have done an incredible job. You just have to look around and see. And I just want to give a special thank you to our great First Lady who organized this entire event. She worked very, very hard on it. She worked very hard. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm working on the egg roll." I said, "That sounds like a lot of fun." And we're going to have a lot of fun in just a couple of minutes. But again, our country is doing very well. We had the highest number of recruits, enlistments that we've had in, I think, 28 or 29 years, and I'm sure we're going to actually beat that number. It's all happened. Since November 5th, it's all happened. Enrollment in the military is at a record, and enrollment in the police force, fire forces, and all of the different law enforcement groups. We're setting records, and 6 months ago, we couldn't get anybody. And now we're setting records. That's sort of testament to what's happening in terms of the spirit of our country. We love our country, and it's been something very, very special. And speaking of special, Easter is special, and it's one of our favorite days. It's one of our favorite periods of time. We're honoring Jesus Christ, and we're going to honor Jesus Christ very powerfully throughout our lives, all throughout our lives, not just now, all throughout our lives. We're bringing religion back in America. We're bringing a lot of things back, but religion is coming back to America. That's why you see the kind of numbers that you're seeing, the spirit and the kind of numbers that you're seeing. So we're going to come down and join you right now, but I just want to wish everybody once again, Happy Easter, and enjoy your lives. We're going to have a great 4 years. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
see his face anyway.
The Vatican has announced the death of Pope Francis after a battle with pneumonia. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jonathan Martin. The 88-year-old pontiff had been in the hospital since February 14th, and after nearly 12 years as Pope, he will leave behind a changed Catholic Church. The leader of more than 1.4 billion Roman Catholics is known for his advocacy of human rights and environmentalism.
The legacy of Pope Francis, I think, as with any pope, will be tested over time and over the centuries. For me, the Holy Father, what I love about Pope Francis is how he constantly nudges me and pokes me and pushes me to the margins, to the vulnerable. He was a voice that resounds across the globe to remember the smallest, the weakest, the most vulnerable, those who are at the bottom of the supply chains for the rest of us, the migrant. He is a resounding, powerful voice for the dignity of every human being. And to insist upon that so thoroughly as Pope Francis has done from the moment he became Pope, makes me uncomfortable sometimes, makes us uncomfortable sometimes. And so for me, his legacy will be a legacy of challenge, to challenge us to take the truth of Jesus all the way down, not just in the bits that we like.
Pope Francis was the first pope from Latin America. He was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And since he was elected pope in 2013, he was known for his humility, concern for the poor, his interfaith outreach, and down-to-earth approach. Journalist John Davis covered the Vatican for 30 years, including in his New York Times best-selling book, The Vatican Diaries. He said from the beginning, people knew Pope Francis was going to be a pope like no other.
You knew that you weren't going to kiss his ring. He wanted a handshake. He came at you with a handshake. And then he would ask you how you were doing. He'd ask you about your family. He might joke about your book, like he did with me.
Many were thankful for the progress he made in the church, like apologizing to the people who were sexually abused by clergy members. In 2018, Pope Francis issued a letter to Catholics all around the world condemning the crime of priestly sexual abuse and cover-up and demanding accountability. He begged for forgiveness for the pain suffered by victims. In 2023, he formally approved priests to bless same-sex couples. Anna Laurel covered the impact this had.
It's groundbreaking, and I don't think the significance can be overstated.
Tim Foley is the director of the LGBTQ ministry at St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church. I met him today after the Vatican announced Pope Francis formally approves of letting Catholic priests bless same-sex couples. That means same-sex couples can receive God's love and mercy through a blessing from a priest.
A blessing recognizes that something's holy, that it is loved by God, that there's worth to it. It's an acknowledgement that, number one, that civil unions exist, that that civil same-sex unions exist.
The blessing is not the same as a blessing in a formal wedding ceremony. In fact, the Vatican statement says blessings should not be done in conjunction with a civil ceremony, gay or straight. These blessings are not blessing the same-sex relationship, but Foley says this new rule makes LGBTQ people be seen by the church.
What it's saying is that who you are, how you identify, doesn't preclude you from being a member of the church. It's a step forward for tearing down some of these walls that have made people feel like they can't be part of the church, or made people within the church feel like we can't accept LGBT people.
The LGBTQ ministry at St. John the Evangelist Church is one of only a few such ministries at parishes in San Diego. Foley says almost every Sunday people protest outside against the church's welcoming LGBTQ policy. He hopes this new rule from the Vatican shows people everyone is wonderfully made and loved by God.
It opens the door, and again, it's teaching people that, you know, gay people, LGBT people are part of our family, and it's reversing a lot of these destructive teachings that were there before.
The Pope did uphold the ban on women priests, yet put women in top leadership roles in the Vatican. In January, the pontiff announced Sister Simona Brambilla will lead the Vatican's dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. Throughout his 11-year papacy, Francis has previously named women to second-in-command positions in the Vatican's development, family life, and press offices. And in February, the Pope named another woman to take over a top management job in the Vatican. Sister Raffaella Petrini, an Italian nun, was named as president of the Vatican city-state, making her essentially the governor. 10 years ago, Pope Francis embarked on a historic 6-day tour of the United States. He visited Washington, D.C., New York, and Philadelphia. Pope Francis met with President Obama, and his welcome in D.C. was Obama's largest state arrival ceremony during his presidency. Now, during that visit, Pope Francis also spoke before a joint session of lawmakers, becoming the first pontiff to address Congress. We'll take you back through the archives for that historic visit.
It was as if the heavens parted and Pope Francis came down. The pontiff's plane landed at Andrews Air Force Base just before 4 o'clock today. He was greeted by President Obama and the First Family and a few thousand others.
It's exciting. He's the best of all popes.
While nearly everyone else jumped in their large SUVs, Pope Francis, a self-described simple man, hopped into a little Italian-made Fiat. Twitter erupted. Pope in D.C. riding in style. Fiat, tweeted one person. "You've got to love this man, arriving in a Fiat," tweeted another. The Fiat brand fittingly tweeted, "Blessed." But WUSA 9's Bruce LeShan probably summed it up best.
A great man, an incredibly popular man, in a teeny tiny car.
And off he went to the Vatican Embassy on Mass Avenue, where he'll spend the next 2 nights. Along the way, doing what he does best, touching people.
There's a Fiat, right down there. Oh!
Even with a simple wave.
Did you hear my excitement? I felt like a little girl again. There you go, so excited.
Not since the Beatles set foot on American soil in the 1960s has a foreign citizen been greeted with so much excitement. Outside the embassy, they didn't just cheer, they screamed as the Pope's unmistakable ride pulled up. Another simple wave was all it took.
Word cannot express my joy. I cannot. You had to see me. I was jumping and screaming. I wasn't the only one.
Mauricio Gomez brought the whole family.
My little girl, my nephew, my wife is pregnant. Everybody's here.
They waited for hours outside the Vatican Embassy just to get a glimpse.
What was it like when he arrived?
Oh, it was something that you cannot tell. There's no words.
Why so much excitement around this Pope?
Because this is the Pope. It's so important, and he cares about us. He cares even about you. And everybody feels Catholic, non-Catholic.
A religious man who seems to transcend religion.
This Pope is just our Pope, not just the Catholic Pope. He's our Pope.
Here at the Franciscan Monastery, the luminaries are lit in honor of Pope Francis, and Father Ed Flanagan is going around sprinkling holy water and blessing the luminaries and everyone here. Earlier today, it was all about Pope Francis, and there was an exciting watch party. Excitement filled the air at the watch party as soon as the Pope's plane came into view. And when Pope Francis emerged from the plane and was greeted by President Obama and his family, people at the Franciscan monastery stood and cheered.
It's very exciting. I get goosebumps.
One couple drove from Florida just to be here.
I'm so excited. I'm so lucky to see him, that he's here in D.C.
Very exciting. We love this Pope. I like all the popes. This one here, though, seems to have a special human touch, and I think he's touched a lot of people all over the world.
He's like a down-to-earth person, very simple.
Today, it was all about Pope Francis's arrival on U.S. soil.
I feel like crying already. I don't know why. I'm so excited. It's just how he touched everybody's heart.
On behalf of Michelle and myself, welcome to the White House.